Yeah, thank you so much. Hi everybody. Um, Welcome to this afternoon session, and thanks for being here to my presentation. How are you doing? Is everything okay? Are you having fun? I hope so. No? It's a nice event. It's my first time in Lithuania. I discovered the venue in the city of Vilnius. It's really nice. So, I am Matteo. I am Italian. I am currently living in Paris and working for PayPal as Senior Manager International Quality Engineering. A couple of more things about this talk before starting. The major topic is about globalization in the software development life cycle. So we will cover the major, let's say, tech aspects that you should do to ensure globalization readiness to your product. And I will share with you some of the points I introduced in PayPal that allowed us to release our new PayPal application on last February on 28 markets in one shot. This is mainly the talk. I will show you some examples, especially at the beginning, of what global first can means, and we will do some analysis of the websites. The level of these talks is mainly an intermediate one, so if you are a beginner, maybe it's a little bit too advanced for you. If you are an advanced in topics like internationalization and globalization, maybe it is too easy, all right? And it should take more or less half hour, so we have time for question and answer after the talk, all right? So, global first, no? To be or not to be, that's the question. I can share with you my personal view now, but it's not the goal, no? The goal for me is giving you the most possible information to put you in the best position at the end of this talk to answer to this question by your own concerning on your business. For sure, if you are having a very local product, doesn't make too much sense to have a global first approach. It can be a waste of time and money, no? But before starting talking about global first, I'd like to talk a little bit about mobile first. Mobile first, no? What does it mean, mobile first? Basically, you are mobile first if you are starting from the conception of your product, thinking on ensuring a best-in-class experience to your customers when they're using your product in a smartphone. Why I'm talking about mobile first in a global first talk, no? It's weird, but that's why, mainly because I am constantly bombarded with this topic of mobile first at the office. It's like this all the time. When I am hanging out with friends, it's the same. When I'm meeting other people, it's constantly the same. And then but wait, we are in 2016, no? Mobile first was innovative 7-8 years ago. Now it should be given for granted, at least in my opinion. But in any case, I want to reinforce this point. That's why I want to show you this slide. No? This is showing to me very clearly the importance of being mobile first in a market. Here we have the number of transactions per country made by mobile. As you can see, in Japan, you have 50% of transactions in e-commerce which are made by mobile. In United Kingdom and South Korea, at least the 40%. And if we compare from Q4 2014 to Q4 2015, we may say that we basically doubled the number of countries that we have here, which are reaching out the 35% of transactions in e-commerce, no? What does it mean? This is, telling us very clearly that if you are not having a very mobile approach in 2016 from the very beginning, you are basically risking to lose an important market share, especially on these countries, no? In the next slide, I want to show you basically the top 10 economies that we have in the world in 2010 and the prediction for 2020 and 2040. As we can see, comparing 2010 and 2040, we have quite a lot of changes, no? We have France, Italy, and Canada, which moved out, replaced by Nigeria, Russia, and Indonesia. We have Japan that moved from the 3rd place to the 8th one, and we have India moving from the 9th to the 2nd. Of course, these are predictions, but what does it mean? It means that if you are working, you know, in international e-commerce especially, you don't want to wait the 2020 or the 2040 to be on these markets and in other emerging markets. You want to be there as soon as you can. And you want to start, you know, gaining part of the markets there as soon as you can. So this is why it's very important to have a software architecture which is allowing you to scale quickly and easily to several markets without waiting or rebuilding so much, no? To be very aggressive on new markets with your business. The next slide is about the top emerging markets in 2016. Has any of you any idea of which can be the countries on, you know, the next slide? Someone want to try? Let's make it differently. How many of you think that Mauritania is there? Raise your hand. No. Tanzania? No. Bangladesh? No. But Bangladesh and Tanzania are there. See, Colombia, Peru, Kenya, those markets are the top emerging markets in 2016. So, same as before, no? You want to be in these markets as soon as you can, before your competitors are there. And you want to start gaining markets there, especially if you're doing e-commerce, and having, you know, a product that, as I said, is allowing you to switch on Tanzania tomorrow, of course, with the respecting all the compliance and rules and policy rules that you may have there. It's giving you the possibility to be present there and to start gaining a little bit, you know, the market there. All right. I will start showing you now some websites to talk a little bit more about what's mobile and what's global first. And I will show you the desktop experience and the mobile experience for them. And I'll talk a little bit about that. Right? So let's start with this one. Do you know this? Does anyone, you know, is not sure about what's that website? Okay, this is, you know, Lietuva Streetas. Is my pronunciation correct? Cool, no? The team here, and you don't know, but this is basically my favorite basketball team in Lithuania. It's true, because, you know, you had Arvydas Maciauskas and Robertas Javtogas playing for the team, which are among my favorite basketball players. You know, I was a basketball player, so that's why I know these things, no? So this is the web experience. You can see on the top right, you have as language Lithuanian and English, so you don't have so many choices. But can make sense, because basically if you are not the NBA, the basketball is a product which is mainly local and can be, you know, with the English option, you can give, you know, the opportunity to people in the continent or to close countries to see the website, or even, let's say, friends or parents of the American players, no? Let's see how is the mobile experience. It's exactly the same. The good point is that, you know, here you have the Lithuanian and there you have the English experience. You know, the software, let's say, architecture is the same, but it's not mobile first, no? Because I'm on my mobile and I've seen this. To read the content is a little bit tricky. Let's watch this. Zalgiris. I don't like these folks. They won in 1999 the EuroLeague versus Virtus Bologna, my team in Italy. That's why. This is the, you know, the web experience is pretty much the same. You have English and Lithuanian. If you switch the language, the experience is pretty much the same. Looking to the mobile one, you see, here you have the Lithuanian, there the English, but the content is a lot more readable. You just have to scroll with your thumb. And this is what can be a more mobile-first approach, no? Once you are seeing a website on your smartphone and you can easily read the content and navigate quite well. Let's see now some other websites of let's say, companies, into brackets, that should have a more international market. Let's see this, no? This is Inter Milan website. Inter Milan is the second team in Milan, because the first one is AC Milan. This should be more international because the ownership of this team is half from Indonesia and half from China. So I was expecting to have at least Indonesian and Chinese in the language top left, and it was the case. We had 6 languages, and if you go through the web experience, it's exactly the same for any language. But let's see the mobile one. On the left, you have English. In the middle, Indonesia. On the right, Japanese. In the 2 on the left, you can see exactly the same experience that we had for Lietuva's Rytas. You know, not a very much mobile-friendly experience, but the good point is that the software is pretty much the same. It's weird the case about Japanese, because it's more mobile, but it's completely different. Then if you look at the URL, you can see that it seems they built a second website dedicated to Japanese. And this is, you know, a quite weird strategy. Imagine you are doing this for any language that you have. If you have, let's say, 10 languages, you are spending a lot of money. Let's see now this. The first team in Milan, of course. Even in this case, I was expecting several languages because they are usually doing tournée in Dubai, Japan, China, and so on, and it was the case. Even in this case, the website is pretty much the same for any type of local. Let's look about mobile. You have English and Japanese. The interesting thing about this experience, mobile, is that in mobile I didn't have the chance to have all the languages I had from the desktop experience. For instance, Japanese was not on the mobile. You know, I had a hack. I made a hack on the URL, and I managed to have the Japanese out. But if you see the experience is pretty much the same. No, the katakana language, which is this, is displayed quite well. The layout is pretty much the same. So we can say that we are in a very first, let's say, approach of mobile and global at the same time. Now I want to show you this. This is the Manchester City website. As we can see, we have 13 different languages there. And most interesting, we have even the Arabic there. Why interesting? Because Arabic should be right to left. So we are expecting to have a sort of screen mirroring. It's true. The web experience is basically the same for all the languages. The mobile, I took 3 of the 13. I took Korean, Russian, and Arabic to show you that even in this case, despite here you can have some bug, because the content should be completely here, but the experience is quite the same, no? You have the menu on the left, the CJK, Chinese, Japanese, Korean character, which are this one, are displayed very well. Cyrillic is displayed well. Text expansion is managed here. You're going on 2 lines, and the layout is good, you know. This is, let's say, very first case that we have a very global experience, because they consider the CJK, the left to right, like Cyrillic, English, Lithuanian, and so on, languages, and languages right to left, like can be Hebrew or Arabic, no? It's even more visible on the home page. On the home page, we have basically the same experience. Everything is displayed properly, and here, even, you know, in this case, we can see the screen mirroring with the logo to the right, the menu on the left of the screen. So looking at this and thinking of having business in international markets, my recommendation is being global first on top of mobile first. Mobile first should be something that have to be mandatory in 2016. Global first is a way to think at the very beginning of the process to ensure you are considering all these points before you start the dev, no? Let's see this more concretely here in the Scrum framework. Are you familiar with that? This is the Scrum framework. Basically, you have the vision, the backlog, the sprint backlog. The sprint backlog is defining the things which are going into the sprint, the user stories there. And you will have between 1 and 4 weeks of execution in the sprint, no? If you want to be global first, you have to be global first starting from the vision. You cannot start in being global first from the sprint backlog because you lost time. Probably you didn't think about your software architecture in a proper way, which is allowing you to scale quickly. So what we are doing in PayPal and what I'm suggesting to do even in other companies was to have a software architect, a dev manager, and a quality manager in the vision meetings, working with, you know, product, even business units in case, just to understand the complexity of the challenge. And then starting working from the product backlog very closely with user designers and product managers, and involving the team, of course, which will be really doing the execution during the sprint. It's very important, the role of QA here, because it's very important to start the QA, really, the execution of the QA here, in the product backlog, analyzing the requirements, doing static analysis of requirements, static analysis of user interface and user layouts, which is allowing you to spot problems that otherwise you are discovering at the end, which will be, you know, very late in an agile process, which is fast. So what we are basically doing with my team is moving the quality process upstream in product backlog, vision, even before starting the dev, if possible. Let's see with some more practical example how to do it, no? Let's take, for instance, the screenshots that we have seen before. If you want to do static analysis of these two screenshots, usually you can have user designers giving you this, not like this, but similar in mockups. And if you are a QA engineer, we are expecting you, for instance, to spot these things. Here you have basically a whole image in the English menu with Lithuanian content. In this case, you have two options, no? Or you have it like this, or you are translating, you know, you are having an image with the translated content for each country or each locale or language that you are covering with your product. Imagine you are covering 50 languages, you have 50 images with the content every time translated, no? What we recommend is not having content in images, because it can be very expensive. And another thing can be this one, that you have this here, you don't have it for the English. Seems to be an expected result, but these things need to be documented very well in user stories. Otherwise, if imagine you are working with vendors, no? You are giving this to vendors, they don't know, they're just logging bugs because two sections are not displayed, and you are having all this loop in the sprint, which is, you know, making you losing a lot of time. Back and forth is expected behavior, it's not, and so on. Those are important things to spot as early as we can. Let's see another example here with static analysis of UX UI. This is, you know, good and bad things. Good things is here, the text expansion, even for buttons, is managed very well. The content in Arabic is basically the double that you have in Korean. You have dynamical expansion of the user interface controls there. Here you have two buttons, which are, we don't know if useless or not, because in that experience you have plus minus, here you have nothing. So is it normal that we have these two buttons? But it's, you know, question that, you know, as soon as you're making this question to product owners and user designers, the better it is, you know. Cheaper and faster will be your development. We say the problem about, you know, the right to left text that should be completely on the right of the screen. And then about Milan, we have the content which is half in English as in katakana. We don't know if it's a good thing or not. In this case, you know, since I hacked the URL, can be normal. But if you see these things, it's worth to ask a question to your product manager. Is it normal? Are you waiting for translation? And so on. Another very important things to do during the analysis of UX UI is related to design patterns. Here we have some example, no? I took as example the date. You have season 2015, 2016, 15-16 for Milan. Then you have 14th of June 2016, and here you have this format for the time. For Inter, you know, the date format is completely different. For Manchester City is completely different. It is very, very important that you have clear rules for patterns, contents, and formatting before you start the dev. Because if you don't clarify this, you can have really dozens of patterns, and each dev can pick the one that they prefer. And at the end, you are giving a lot of inconsistencies to the experience. And even in this case, the testers are logging bugs against we don't know what, basically. So those are mainly the things that we should do in the UX UI. Best practices are, you know, as I said, stack UI controls, like for the button, to prevent text expansion issues. We can have the text which is very, very longer once you translate it. So this is a good point. Even the dynamical accommodation of the UI for the same reason. And the logic on patterns and contents. My suggestion is, especially at the beginning, keep one form, choose one format, go with that, and then if you have other needs, you know, discuss with the team which can be the other formats that you want to have. Very important, always this here is the guidelines for text expansion. Basically, text expansion can create, you know, can give us a lot of bugs related to truncations, overlapping, and wrapping. What's truncation? For instance, you have, here is a clear example, no? This is a table that we did. You have tip, the word tip, which is 3 char in English, in French is 9, pourboire, no? So if you put tip in a place on your user interface, which is not allowing to display the word pourboire, or you will display just pour and boire not, or you will display pourboire on top of something else. If it's going on top of something else, it's an overlap. If it's just pour, it's a truncation. If it's going on wrap somewhere, not expecting, you know, it's a text wrapping. Are mainly, you know, user interface and content issues that you display in languages here in Europe, like, you know, German, Dutch, Portuguese, and French, where the words are a little bit longer than English. And here's some example, no? Those are, the source of this table is IBM, so you can find it online easily. We added some example about languages, and we made some modification about the number of char and the required expansion. And we are sharing this with content writers and user designers during the vision to make sure that, you know, their content and the layout is considering these points. Let's see something a little bit more technical. Prevention of spaghetti code anti-pattern. This is a very important point once you are building your code. Basically, what we recommend is to develop from one source of code, so do not fork, because one source of code is allowing you to give the same experience to several countries. And another thing is implementing a structure of code, which is allowing you to easily switch a new feature from, you know, for a country to another one without impacting the other countries, mainly. So I don't know if it's clear, but I have, let's say, my product in 10 markets, and in these 10 markets I have 9 features on 10 features that I have. All of a sudden I say, okay, let's switch the 10th feature to 3 more markets. I can do this easily without impacting the others. And this is very important, because if we don't do this, we need to build each time a new fork with a new language, and it's giving us a lot of problems in terms of scalability and maintainability of the code. And another very good things to do about technical things is the construction of sentences. So what we recommend is to externalize locale-specific information. Locale-specific information are mainly currency, numbers, dates, personal names, address patterns, but that's it mainly. So this is a good example. We have one string. Let's help us understand the activity between start date through end date. Start date and end date are so-called content bundles. And you have the output in English and in Japanese, no? You see how in the Japanese, the start date and the end date are mainly at the beginning of the sentence. This is very helpful for languages like Chinese, Japanese, Korean, or even Spanish sometimes, where the sentence construction is very different to the English one. Let's see how it looks like if it's not externalized. It's like this. This is when it is hard-coded. So mainly you have a string 1, which is help us understand the activity between, a string 2 throw, and then you are composing the message. This composed message usually is called a concatenated message, which is giving you concatenation, which is called even fragmentation, which is a typical problem you can have if the local specific information are hard-coded. As you can see, the output in English is exactly the same. The output in Japanese is quite different. See it here? It's completely different. And I don't know if you speak Japanese, but the second one is not good. Yeah. So this is very important. And another thing which can be interesting from a technical point of view is how you handle the local differences, which are the currency, numbers, dates, and so on. If you don't have clear patterns already on this, what we recommend to do is to adopt Unicode. Unicode is an organization which is taking care of all aspects about software internationalization. It's an open source organization which is even providing metadata that developers can use for this. So let's start using Unicode if you don't have already something. And keep in mind that in Unicode you have several formatting or patterns. So in that case you have to pick the best one for you. And what we recommend is to pick one which is displayed properly even on mobile. Here I'm showing you a couple of examples. We have this one which is about date. As you can see here, you have in the first column the country. We have Andorra, Emirate, and so on. The language for the country, and from the third column, those are all possible patterns that you can have for date. So it's an important work that you should do with the user design, content writers, and if you have some regional expert folk, like for instance, if you're going to Japan, you are best to the US, you don't know anything about Japanese. If you have a branch to Tokyo, you can talk to these guys and say, which is the best format for dates, which is the one that is the most used in your country, that can be mobile first and can work at the best for us, no? So you should come with a lot of questions like, which one can I use, which is mobile first, which is the best for my business, and so on. But you see, you have several options. Same for the phone formatting. This is the same. You have basically 4 types: national, international, E164, and the RFC. Even in this case, which is the most customer friendly? Which is the one that I can use if I want to roll out to several markets? One example can be, in input I want to have national, in output I want to have international, so that I have the country code there displayed in case a customer from another country is calling me, and so on. Try to do all these questions to yourself and the rest of your team, and pick the one which is the best for you, and think about being mobile first. Last 2 things for today. One is about automation. Automation is, crucial if you want to go fast in general, so especially in Agile. And especially if you want to go to several markets. You know, you cannot test manually 10 markets in 2 weeks. It's impossible. So you have to automate, and it's necessary to start doing this from the unit test. What we are doing is having a TDD approach. So we start with the testing team writing tests before starting the dev, and we are working very closely with the dev to give this information to them so that they can do similar tests during the unit testing. And what we introduced for the project I was talking about, the PayPal app, was doing a lot of unit tests using even invalid data, so negative testing. This allowed us to prevent a lot of issues very early in the software development life cycle. Of course, it's a big effort at the beginning, but at the end, you are having a huge gain on this. And always about automation, automate end-to-end flows. So automation for regression is very important, but what we want to do in parallel of unit testing is automate the key business flows. So in this case, it's important talking with the business, understand which are the key flows for a given country, which are the one which are specific for the country, and the one which are in common with other countries or not. So you can basically automate blocks and reuse them for this country. Let's say, for instance, this is the login for one country and this is the one for the other one, but this part is the same and this part is the same as well. So these are the two things to let's say, change for one country or another. But once you are running the whole end-to-end suite, you are gaining a lot of time because you are not writing 2 times this part or that part. Imagine if you have 25 countries, you are saving a lot of time, basically. And the other one is about pseudo-localization. I don't know if you are familiar with pseudo-localization. This is a testing technique. Basically, you have, once you are in dev, you have a package with, let's say, local, which is English US, for instance, and you are deploying this package on test to have testers testing it, let's say. In this case, you are making a copy of this package and you are applying a script, which is basically changing the content from this to this. This is mainly a good point if your localization process is quite slow, because it's giving you the possibility to check points like fragmentation, hard-coded tests, hard-coded content, and text expansion without waiting for the localized content. So for the English US, I have linking your card is as easy as taking a picture. In the pseudo-localized package, my content will be like this. So this is allowing me to read easily the content, but it's quite longer, so I can check the text expansion, and we are using even special characters to see if we can have encoding problems and so on. And pseudo is available even for Asian languages. Basically, you put a kanji and a kana here to make sure that you have no spaces. And for right to left, you just have to put a key, in this case Arabic key, at the end, and the text will be displayed on the other way around, mirroring. And yeah, the benefit of pseudo, as I said, you know, identifying text fragmentation. Fragmentation was the concatenation of strings, as I have shown you before. So, for instance, if you have it, you can see clearly a piece of sentence and another piece of sentence with the 2 brackets. You see very easily that the sentence is not in, you know, it has been composed. Not externalized content, you know, the text expansion, as I told you. This is mainly, you know, the importance of pseudo-loc. So I finished, basically. If you have questions, I'm here.
Anyone? Okay, I have a question.
Yeah, tell me.
Let's imagine that you have a scenario where your user is calling an API, and for some reason API has to notify the user that we can do this action because of certain settings, please change your settings, something like that. So would you prefer to return this message from the API localized, or would you do that in UI, let's say in JavaScript?
It's better in JavaScript, because if you have this in several countries and you are having it coming back localized, it means that you have to invest resources to localize this for each country, right? If it's in JavaScript, you have it directly. I answered to your question?
So basically you return the code and then
yeah,
you go through dictionary.
Yeah.
Is there any scenario where you would like to return data localized from the API? I'm not talking about like the news article, but like some sort of data, like contextual data. Would there be a case for that?
We are not doing this. So we are taking things directly in English, and then we are localizing it if necessary after. I don't know if your whole system, for instance, it's in another language, and you are handling this from the, you are handling several languages, you can do this, but we are doing this differently. We are getting this in the English, and if in case we localize it. For us it's easier. You can do the other one.